All right, we are live. I'm not going to wait for people. I used to wait for people to come to show up, but I always remember that they're on a little bit of a delay, so I'm just going to start anyway. But hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the post show. I am joined with Nick, as usual, as it seems at this point, and we have two new guests. We have John, Michael, and Stephanie, both from Northeastern. Thank you guys for coming. We appreciate it. Very exciting episode. We had one of my favorite challenges that we've ever done, Luke Paul's drag race. So we'll start there. Let's just get your guys' initial thoughts on the challenge.
I thought it was a super creative challenge, especially because it had to be adapted to Zoom. I'm not a big fan of challenges that have to be judged subjectively. I feel like it's a little bit unfair, especially with an individual challenge at Final 10. You really want like a challenge that can be just like objectively measured for someone to win. That said, it was still a lot of fun. And I had a lot of fun watching it. And the lip sync battle was intense, I have to say. But yeah, I think Kevin killed it in that challenge. He deserved that win. But there were a lot of creative ideas, and it was really fun to watch, like as a viewer.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's weird to do a subjective challenge like that. I think the only way that it like to justify it is being like anyone who has a strong social game, that's like their challenge to win if they're a really social person. And obviously Kevin's a really social person, and that's probably why he ended up winning it. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree with both of them. I think that this was a super cool challenge to do over Zoom, and like definitely something different than like if it was in person. So I thought it was like definitely new and very cool, and I think Kevin deserved that win.
Yeah, it's hard to really go against the judge's decision, aka Anders, Paul, Val, and McGuire. Yeah, I mean, who is McGuire? Who is the real identity? But I do agree. It is tough when you're doing those subjective type challenges. I remember when I played, it was like the premiere of season 1, we had that, and I remember like we ended up winning that challenge, but there were parts like this is kind of dumb. But I think when we were planning the challenge, I think it was smart to get people like Nick and Anders who don't really know, like don't have any connection to the game. Valentina and Paul kind of knew what was going on, but Valentina I think was kind of more of a helper than like a more like being invested in the season. So I think the fact that they weren't all super involved did kind of make it better, but I do agree it is tough to have those subjective challenges, especially once we get to the merge. I want to quickly go through all 10 of theirs name. I have written down their names and their theme. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on each of them. First was Cassidy going by It's Litany Bitch with the fire theme, with like the fire, as Luke always says, fire is your life in this game. First thoughts when you first saw that?
I know when it was like we filmed that like way back in October, so like it's hard to remember, but I remember sitting there because we actually like met the whole cast and then they started like the 30 minutes, so we were sitting there just waiting for them the whole time. And I remember one of the things we talked about was like, oh, are they actually going to be like super creative with like their names and their concepts, or are they just gonna like throw something together and it's gonna be like kind of half-assed? But she was the first one to come out, and I think I said it, like she set the bar actually kind of high because It's Litany Bitch. Obviously, it's a direct reference to Britney, and then a direct reference to Survivor as well. And so I was kind of impressed with her that she was able to come up with a concept like that related to kind of like queer culture and Survivor. Which was kind of what the challenge was in that amount of time. I thought that was really interesting. And I was actually really shocked that out of all people, she was one of the people who was able to do that, because I haven't seen that side of her thus far on this season.
You know, I think instead of, I'm going to go each of you for like one person so we don't take forever on each person.
Sorry, I like...
No, like Nick, you're going to have like the best analysis of each person. But like, I also don't want this post show to go like 3 hours. But yeah, next was Madison with her Russian themed Katyana. apparently that was a callback to Drag Race. I didn't know that, but let's go to Stephanie for that one. What do you think?
I did not get the reference because I didn't watch the show, but I thought it was definitely creative of her to like create a character, and I think instead of like focusing on the outfit, she focused more on the person, and I thought that was very different and also very cool. So I thought it was well done.
John Michael. Next, we had Holly, who went with Miss Shallow, the Parv superfan, going with the season 20, episode 3. I think they said Mud Fight episode. Obviously, Parvati, one of the greatest to ever play, and I say that with very limited knowledge. But what do you think?
Yeah, I actually didn't get the reference originally to the episode that it was from, but I loved the idea of bringing a Survivor player like Parvati into a Drag Race and just like merging those two things. I mean, I think that was the only like direct Survivor player reference, and she pulled it off really well. Like she really owned it, and I thought that was really fun to watch. Like as a Survivor fan, and it's definitely a good way to like get on the judges' side because obviously all the judges are going to be Survivor fans, even if they're not Drag Race fans. So I thought that was a really good move on her part, even if that may not have even like been her intention. But yeah, I thought that was a really creative costume.
Mm-hmm. All right, back to you, Nick. We had Joe, aka Adobo Joe. I don't think he really had a theme. The only thing I had written down was that like the crisscross top. I didn't know what it was called, but I like that. I thought he got robbed. But what did you think?
I think I was one of the people who ranked him much higher than the other judges because I also kind of really loved it. I remember when he first turned on his camera, he had on like just like the jacket or whatever. And I was like, oh, this seems like a cop out. And then he like pulled it open and I had no words, speechless. It was so funny. I personally believe he was one of the people who embodied this challenge the most. And so he was another one, actually. He's kind of been like soft-spoken, I feel like, this season. And that was kind of surprising to see him in that position, but he kind of served.
All right, Stephanie, next we had the eventual winner, the icon himself, Kevin, going as Rickalicious with a reference to or callback to Cowboy Rick, who I'm sure is a Survivor player. It sounds familiar. I don't really know. But thoughts on Kevin's first impression?
I thought it was really well done. It was definitely very involved. He had the wig, the cowboy hat, the dress, the purse, everything. I thought he really thought that through and he did a good job, and I think he really owned the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, definitely ended up winning in the end. But John Michael, next we had Lindsay, the runner-up, as Madame Medusa, who I wrote down a quote, she is immortal and will last until the end, and also tried to bring it back to Survivor by saying she was green, which was at the time the Spirit Tribe's main color. What did you think about Lindsay?
That was another one where I thought it was a super creative character. Originally I wasn't sure what was going on. Then she made like the reference to Medusa and then brought it back to Survivor. That was really strong. And she had the props. She had like the dinosaur. She fully like owned the whole outfit. And like that's what the whole competition is about. Like the people who owned their costumes the best, like did the best in the challenge. And that's what I liked about this. You really got a sense of like who wanted it more because it just kind of came out in your performance how badly you wanted to win because it's really a challenge that anyone can win. So I liked that one a lot.
Mm-hmm. Next we had Lydia as Ivy Galore. She was supposedly one with nature. I think she was she one of the first? She was one of the first 4 eliminated. What was going through your mind when you were discussing her, Nick?
I'm not gonna lie, even having just watched the challenge, it faded in the background. So I can't even put my finger on like what she looked like. But I think that maybe in terms of the actual Survivor game, that maybe is what she wanted to do. She didn't want to stand out this week, and she wanted to kind of float her way through this week and make someone else be the bigger target and the louder person. And so she did that successfully, if that's what she was trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Next was one of my favorites. I think he was also raw, but we had Owen as Samantha, who was the substitute teacher who was also ready for the elements. I think what stood out to me the most about that one was he closed with "shove it." I believe that was him. But Stephanie, what did you think?
I thought his was so funny. He really owned it. He was wearing a skirt, I think, and a bra. He had some makeup on. That was definitely a look. And I remember he was like very outgoing, and he was like he said "shove it" to the judges, and like I think he really owned his character, and the outfit was just great.
I just think the funniest part about Owens was the first vlog they showed after the challenge. He filmed immediately after. He still had the bra, he still had his makeup on. He's like, I should have been more charismatic. I thought it was so funny just seeing him like really analyze himself while still in costume. Next was Sabrina as Mystique Swamp Chic. I believe also was that the fourth of the initial people. Yes, it was. She was one of the first four voted out. She had I got a little confused on her theme because it kind of seemed like it went all over the place, but it started off as like a Vine theme that ended up being Ophelia, who drowned in the river. I have a question mark next to it, but John Michael, thoughts on Sabrina's?
That one has also escaped my memory a little bit, but I do think like that's a case where it just comes down to the performance, and you really, if you have like a solid like message and theme like to show the judges, I think that goes a long way. So I feel like hers was not as like coordinated as it could have been. So it was a creative outfit and like a creative character, but she didn't really tie it all together in her performance. So I think that's why she didn't do as well as she maybe could have.
Finally, we'll wrap it up with you, Nick. We had Zach as the mighty Aphrodite, obviously named after the Greek goddess, with his toga. Thoughts on the final contestant of the challenge?
From what I remember, I think we ranked him low just because it was a funny concept, like with the toga and everything. But they had 30 minutes, and it seemed like everyone else had done more with their 30 minutes with like their concepts and how to interact with the judges and everything during their presentation than he did. So while I think that he was funny and that he did kind of have something going for him, I think we ranked him low because everyone else had more.
Yeah, he did make out of it. He did escape that first four elimination, though. But obviously, as we said, Owen as Samantha, Lydia as Ivy Glore, Sabrina as Mystique Swamp Chic, and Joe as Adobo Jojo were the first four eliminated. And the top two ended up being Rickalicious, Kevin, and Lindsay's Madame Medusa. They moved on. Obviously, they had a lipstick battle to Toxic. Very fun to watch. That's just all-time season highlight right there. In the end, Rickalicious won the community challenge and chose to give the idol clue to Lindsay for her effort in the challenge. Do you think that was the right move for him to do? Or should he have given it to someone maybe like Holly to try and regain that trust a little bit more that he had lost from the week prior?
I thought it was interesting because I feel like he flips between last episode and this episode. He was originally with the mind-body people, and then this week he voted with the soul people. So I'm not sure why he flipped, but I think maybe him saying that he gave Lindsay the clue like under the reason of her being second, like could have been trying to cover up that he was going to do that. But I think that definitely showed where his loyalties lied, and it was like surprising that he didn't give it to someone he voted with the last week.
I completely agree. It was definitely a weird choice, and he even said it himself that he was like, maybe this is a bad decision. I think that it was kind of a bad choice just because it's like the lines in the sand are already drawn, so like it's not gonna be like that big of a deal to give it to someone who you trust more, or I don't know, or you're trying to regain trust with. I don't know. I wasn't in his head, and I don't really know why he chose that. I still don't really understand, but he did it. So
yeah, I feel like a couple rounds into the merge, which is where they are at this point in the season, is where you're really going to start like figuring out who you want to trust in the long run, and an idol clue is like the perfect way to do that. So to just kind of give it away like to the second best challenge performer like is probably not the best move strategically, even if like you feel good about doing it. So I think that was probably a mistake on his part, but I guess we'll have to find out.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'll say, anyone else have any final thoughts on the challenge before we move on to what kind of happened that week?
Um,
Also, I'll just put this up here now because.
Oh, my decisions never make sense.
Kevin, if they make sense to you, then that's all that matters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, but with that being said, we'll move on to the vlogs. We start off with Owen, and as we said earlier, still in costume. He said he wanted to speak with Holly. He also says that Sabrina wants Holly out and is starting to push this evil Lindsay narrative. I think he said that he was just getting annoyed anytime she opened her mouth. I think I think he said her laugh was kind of helping with that narrative. He's just trying to make it. I think he was kind of just scrambling after the last vote. But see, yeah, this is always a part of the post show where I get confused because I just go in order and I don't have that much written down for each person. I don't know. Anyone have any thoughts on Owen's first vlog? I don't really expect anyone to remember it. All right. Well, let's go to Holly. Her whole vlog was essentially why has Kevin flipped on not only people he's been working with the whole game, but also with friends that I think he's known for a while now. And I think you guys kind of touched on it earlier, but do you think Kevin made the right choice last week in flipping and voting out Ryan? And what do you think what could he have done this week, kind of without using hindsight now that we know what happened, but what do you think he should have done to try to regain some of that trust this week?
Like we said, I think giving that idol clue would have been a great way to regain any sort of trust. And I don't think we really saw a lot of damage control at all from him this week. I think what he should have done was use the fact that he was safe this week to be like, obviously you can't get me out. Let me like explain myself. And that's just what I would have done. Because he had the opportunity. I guess he still technically has the rest of next week. But he could have granted himself a little bit more time to like convince people that they can trust him again. And I don't think he really did that.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Any thoughts on Kevin?
I thought his move made sense to vote out Ryan because it seemed like Ryan was in a really good place at that point, and it was a blindside because they expected him to vote the other way. I'm kind of confused on how much he plans on flipping. Like, he flipped back to the side this round, and like I feel like if you keep flipping, you're always going to be on the bottom of an alliance just because they don't trust you all the way. So I'm kind of interested to see his like long-term game plan and which side he ends up sticking with.
Yeah, I agree. And like Nick had said, like he didn't do much damage control, so it doesn't seem like there's a good way for him to get back towards like the top of an alliance. So I'm not really sure what the strategy is like going forward. Obviously, he was safe this week, but I feel like he's just making a bigger target out of himself by flipping the past couple of rounds. And I mentioned before, like you really want to figure out who you want to go far in the game with at this point, and it doesn't seem like he's doing that too much. So I'm interested to see what goes on the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, as I think Stephanie said, we go to Kevin's vlog. Says he's like sorry, felt bad about flipping, but didn't really give like a really like concrete reason on like why, like what he plans to do to like fix it. All he really said was that plans on voting with Holly and Cass this week to try to regain some of that trust, and is now going back on to go against Lydia and Sabrina, who he had just worked with. So as you said, we'll see how this kind of flip-flop strategy works for him. But then we go to Madison, who had her big trust chart. I didn't understand the trust chart. I was trying to understand the numbers. I think from what I gathered, she was saying this week she would have rather worked with Owen, Lydia, Kevin, and Sabrina instead of Lindsay and Zach. That she wants to get Holly to play an advantage, and if not, vote for Lindsay or Cass. I think I have that right. But first of all, let's just get thoughts on the trust chart, because that was pretty hardcore. That was, in my opinion, that was like Hannah Dolan-esque.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. It reminded me of Hannah Dolan.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all we have to do. All we have to do about the spreadsheet.
Oh no, Madison, I'm not hating on the spreadsheet at all.
We don't hate.
love
I just didn't understand the trust
No.
card.
I just personally didn't understand the numbers statistically. I don't know. I didn't know what it meant, but I was like, okay, yeah.
I agree. I was a little confused on the numbers. I didn't have time to like stop it and go back to like read it.
Uh-huh.
But I love the organization, loved like the strategy, and like the time that went into the spreadsheet. So I thought that was a super creative idea.
I thought it was like a good way to visualize. She like what I think it was like she ranked each people from 1 to 10. The only thing I was like confused about is how she would like know other people's rankings and like where they stand with each other, because that's like a huge part of the game, like not knowing like how close people actually are. So I think that's definitely tough, but like her being able to put it on paper and like visualize it like that definitely helps.
Yeah. Let's see. Next, we went to Lydia, who everyone now thinks Lydia has an idol, even though she doesn't. She thinks that maybe Kevin. Somehow, we always end up talking about Kevin. It always goes back to Kevin. But apparently, Kevin has been continuously lying to her, and she also thinks that he's the one potentially spreading that. I'm not totally sure where it actually comes from, but do you think Lydia is justified in thinking that it's Kevin's work spreading that rumor around?
I mean, it's not like a bad assumption to make if you look at what like Kevin's style of play the past couple of weeks. Like if you hear rumors about yourself, you're immediately gonna think that it's someone who's playing a more messy game that's spreading it. Because usually people that like are close on one side or another are probably not trying to stir things up. So it's not a bad assumption to make from her point of view, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm coming up with all these questions on the fly. Most of them probably don't make any sense. But next we go to Joe, where we kind of start to see where this plan is trying to be formed, where there's this original idea to split the vote on Lydia and Sabrina. But then Owen now wants to flip on Holly, then convince her to work with him after, not thinking about, or now Joe is thinking about voting Owen with Holly. So this is where Owen comes back in as like, this is the guy who needs to go. Was that mostly? That's not a good question, but I don't know. What do we think about Joe deciding to now go vote for Owen instead of doing the split? And then later we kind of find out that Joe was just going to throw his vote away. He ended up not doing it, but most people were under the assumption that he was going to. So thoughts on just Joe this episode, I guess.
I think that's also interesting because he was also one that flipped, because I think he did vote Ryan last round. So it was interesting to see him flip back, because that's also like shows that they couldn't trust him last round. And about the whole like throwing his vote, I understand that like he didn't want to vote for Owen directly, but I think that I don't know if he was trying to do like jury management or whatever, but if you throw your vote, then you piss that person off who doesn't end up going home. So that also cuts another connection off for him. So I was kind of confused why he wanted to throw his vote, especially if it wasn't going to matter and he was just going to piss an extra person off. But he didn't end up doing that, so that makes sense to me.
Anyone else thoughts on Joe?
Yeah, I agree. I think that he was just like trying to make a move and then decided against it and was like, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. I guess he caught himself, which is good.
All right. Let's see. Next, we go on to Lindsay, who is now paranoid of whether or not Holly and Cass are with her, because supposedly Joe told Holly that Owen is voting Lindsay. Actually, that is completely unrelated. I hate my notes; they never make any sense. But I'm just gonna go through this because. Yeah. Next, we had Sabrina, who's nervous after a call with Lydia, Owen, and Madison, thinks Kevin is about to flip, which obviously he does, because Kevin is not responding to her or Lydia. Reached out to Zach, who they both kind of seem to be on the same page. They might not work together this week, maybe not next week, but in the future, that could potentially happen. What do you guys think about a potential Sabrina and Zach collab? Let's call it down the road once we start to get to some smaller numbers.
It's interesting. I don't think that they've both really played any sort of or made any sort of like ballsy moves yet in the game, either of them. So I think teaming up, maybe someone will do something. I'm not sure. I think it could end up interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely like the concept of it, and in Survivor, anytime you have like a pair that's working like behind the scenes, that's always like a strong team that like you have to watch out for, especially if other people don't exactly know what's going on. So I think if they were to be a pair with like smaller numbers, getting out to 9-8 people, that could be something that that makes more moves in the game, but that we haven't seen yet. So if that ends up happening, I'll be excited to watch it.
I think it's interesting because they're on like different sides right now. So if they were to work together later, they both have to pull in numbers from like their respective sides. And that's just interesting how they like agreed not to work together this round, but they will in the future. So it'll be cool to see who they pull in and how the lines are drawn in the future.
All right. I'm talking with Owen on the side right now. He just got off a plane. He's in the airport right now. He has really choppy internet, so he may end up coming on next week. Owen, I see you're like in the room right now, but you are moving around. So just text me if you want to come on or not. We'll have you on if you want to come on next week with the next person voted out. That works as well. Just let me know because I know you just got off a flight back to Syracuse. I'm assuming. I don't actually know. I'm just going to assume that's where you're going. But as we wait for that confirmation from Owen, I'm going to skip over Zach because Zach's vlog was just, I feel safe this week. So that was the Zach content that we got. Owen and Madison, we have their joint Zoom meeting in which they call Zach. And they ask Zach basically, like, what are you doing this week? And he says, I'm not allowed to say, which I thought was interesting. Did you guys have any thoughts on that whole interaction? Because that's something that stood out to me this episode.
They were definitely sus of it, obviously, because, I mean, anyone would be sus of someone just holding something out in the open in the middle of tribal.
Yeah, I mean, on like that Zoom call, should Zach have said something else? Like, I don't know. It was kind of like a weird situation, I guess. But like, should he have given an actual name, whether or not that name was true or not? Should he have?
Are we talking about something else?
I was talking about when him and Owen and Madison were on the Zoom call, and they had Zach on the phone, on speakerphone.
Gotcha. I thought we were talking about the moment at Tribal where he was holding the.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But do you think, is that like the right way that Zach should have handled it? Should he have done something different? Excuse me. Like, should he have said an actual name? Like, does going with that, I'm not allowed to tell you, like, approach, like, could that hurt him later on? Like, just what are your general thoughts on that?
I think it's like interesting because that definitely made them more paranoid, and it could have been risky because either Madison or Lydia could have played their idol on Owen, and then that would obviously ruin that side's whole plan. But also, it could have been to flush an idol or something. Like, I don't know if it was like reverse psychology or something, but it's definitely interesting. I probably would have just lied and said they were going with the split plan or something, just to like throw them off the scent. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best move in that scenario is just to act like you're on their side. Because again, like if they're paranoid, you could have an idol play that backfires on you. And at the end of the day, they're going to be mad at you no matter what if you're not voting with them, like after the fact. So you might as well do what keeps you safe at the time. So I thought that was kind of a weird move, and it could have ended worse, but in the end, it didn't really matter.
Yeah, I completely agree. Could have made big waves, but it didn't matter. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get him on now. We have confirmation from the main man himself, Owen Hananel, live from the airport. Owen, first of all, how are you doing? How was your flight? What's going on?
Not great, man. Got like another hour delay. My flight to LA, and yeah, this airport Wi-Fi is kind of doo doo. So I'm using my data. We'll see how long my battery life lasts, but glad to be here.
All right, we'll do our best to kind of go through this quickly before we lose you, but just what happened this week? What was going through your head? What could you have done differently? Break it down for us.
So when I was watching the end of the episode and I said like I have no regrets, that was total bullshit. Like there were so many points in the season where I just kind of like overplayed and did unnecessary shit just to like be flashy, basically. And I don't know. I hadn't seen a ton of Survivor before I came in, and so I really just like followed the, I don't know, like the flashy like villain entertaining players because like that was fun to watch for me. But in doing so, I kind of like betrayed all my allies and had no one left at the end of the game except for, I don't know, people who wanted to take me along. Because I feel like at that point, even if I made it to the end, I probably would not have gotten the votes.
I want to talk about tribal with holding the advantage out in the open. What was the thinking behind that? What were you hoping to get out of it? Walk us through that.
Well, I didn't even think of it until right before tribal because I just like, I don't know, I have the advantage in my bag at all times, basically, or I did. And so, I don't know, I thought of it as I was scrambling and I was like, well, if all else fails, I'll just try to make them scared at tribal, pull out this bullshit advantage. And it was the worst bluff of all time.
All right. Do you have, just looking back on your season 3 experience, do you remember like a favorite challenge you did? Actually, no. We're not going to do that question. We're going to do this instead. Is there someone that you didn't really get the chance to work with that you wish you could have worked with more?
Honestly, I think it would have been fun to work with Adam more. Like, I kind of missed the chaos once he was out of the game, and I don't know. I think it would have been fun to keep playing with him. Also, Holly, like, me and her are still friends. We're still cool, but yeah, in the game, I don't know. we were never on the same page.
What do you think you got out of playing in Mind Body Soul?
I mean, it was a great experience. Like the first, real semester on campus with COVID, so no one was really doing anything. You couldn't go out, see many friends, and it was just something to do. And I kind of like got really into it. I didn't expect to get that into it. I kind of just wanted to like, be chaotic and like, I don't know, cause drama and stuff. But I ended up getting really, really invested. And yeah, I think that was kind of my downfall. I just like played myself out of the game.
Yeah, fair enough. Do any of you guys have any questions for Owen?
How did you decide who to will your legacy advantage to?
Oh, wait. Sorry, what?
How did you decide who you wanted to will your legacy advantage to?
I mean, it was a combination of, like, I'd been working with Madison for a while, and at that point we had, like, a pretty good, I don't know, alliance. Like, I thought she told me everything. She didn't tell me about that idol. I wish I knew that. And I also wish I'd taken Lydia's idol more seriously. Like, I don't know. If I had just gone with the flow, I don't know. Maybe that could have been prevented. But you never know. But, yeah, Madison just closest ally at the time, basically.
How aware were you of Lydia's idol, and like did you guys talk about potentially using it?
Nah, because at that point I really underestimated Kevin this week. I was working on like, I don't know, saving Joe, and Kevin was just kind of like not responding to me, and I was like, what is this man doing? Is he playing? And yeah, I mean, he kind of like towed the line perfectly where I couldn't really tell what he was thinking. And yeah, Joe, I just lost him earlier in the week, and yeah.
All right, fair enough. If anyone else has any questions, I guess now is the time. Otherwise, we'll let Owen go before you can get ready for his hour delay. But I don't know. Anyone else?
No, I don't think I do.
All right. Well, Owen, It was awesome to watch you this year. Definitely one of my favorite players to watch. Had you on my fantasy team. Kind of worked out, kind of didn't. Got some points, but that's neither here nor there. Thank you
Made
for
the
coming.
merge.
Thank you for playing, and yeah, hope you had a good time. We love
Yeah.
watching.
Thanks for having me.
All right, bye, Owen.
Peace.
All right, that was fun. Anything to reflect on after talking with Owen?
He was pretty self-aware, I think, of the game that he played, which having done a lot of these, I think sometimes people are a little delusional of the game that they played, but he seemed pretty aware of like, yeah, I fucked up, so.
I think I agree with him that he did play like a bold and risky game, but he thought he didn't have a chance to win. And from what I've seen, I thought that he could get a few votes if he made it to the end. It's just more risky playing that bold game because you're always going to be a target. But I think if he made it to the end, he could definitely have a shot at winning.
Yeah, I agree. I think he had a shot to win if he had gotten to the end. I kind of wish that like when he had the advantage at tribal, that was a good idea, but he didn't like try to sell it at all. He just kind of held it. I feel like if he had just straight up lied about what it was or just said it was an advantage, like it could have gotten people scrambling. Because if you know you're getting a majority of votes at tribal, then you want to make that tribal as messy as possible. So in that situation where he has an actual advantage with him, I think that was a missed opportunity to actually like stir things up, and could have just changed the game around. So I was a little disappointed that more didn't come out of that, but it was still really fun to watch Owen play.
I mean, I
completely agree. Oh, sorry.
No, you go, Nick. Did not mean to.
Okay. I completely agree with what both of you guys just said. I think that he could have. The Academy Award did not go to him with that last play there at all. But I also agree with what Stephanie said. As much as like people would have probably been mad that he like got them out of the game and stuff, I think at the end of the day, everyone has a big respect for what this game is and would have respected the game that he played at the end. And so I definitely think he would have gotten some votes.
All right. Well, let's see. We'll wrap up the week, and we'll kind of just talk about what could happen in the future. Let's see. Tribal, as we said, Owen's holding the advantage out in the open, never does anything with it, just kind of has it there. He looks like he's going to do something for a couple minutes. He makes a couple comments about it, but as you guys said, I don't think he really capitalized on that. He ends up going home in a 6-4 vote. The other 4 votes going to Lindsay. Lydia does not play the idol for Owen. Do you think she should have? Or did you think she was smart to hold on to it and save it for later?
It depends. I mean, there's only a couple weeks left anyway where they can play them. And so maybe in her mind, she was like, well, next week it could be me who's sitting on the chopping block. And she would obviously rather use that on herself than someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I think that also because it was like 6-4, if she did play it, like they would still be in the minority next round. So it wouldn't be really like flipping the game. So I feel like it was smart of her to save it for herself when she could like get herself further one more round.
Yeah, I agree. Especially with that many people left in the game, like 10, that's still kind of a lot to play on someone else, because you're probably going to want it later in the game when the targets start narrowing down. So it would have been cool to see the play, but I think the smart move is just keep it for yourself or for a closer ally in later round.
Yeah, well, I mean, that about wraps up the episode. So do you guys we'll go to my little superlative game. I don't know if anyone else who hosts a post show does this. I call it a recurring segment, but that might just be when I'm hosting. But do you guys have like an MVP of this episode? Someone who really stood out to you?
I think that Madison's game has been good for most of the season, and I don't think that a lot of people see her coming right now, but she definitely has the wheels turning.
Yeah, I definitely think Madison has played probably the most solid game so far. For this specific episode, I would probably say Kevin, just because he killed the challenge, even though I've been a little critical of his gameplay. But yeah, overall, I would say like Madison has been playing a really solid game, has been making a lot of connections. But this episode, the MVP goes to Kevin.
I definitely agree. I think it's smart to play a quieter game from the start and start making big moves like maybe around now, because she's not exactly a target right now, and she's also in the minority, so it'll be interesting to see how she gets the votes to move forward. But I think it's smart of her to like lay low in the beginning and then ramp it up towards the end.
After this Owen vote, who do you think is in the worst position going into next week?
I think it's tough to say just because there's so many people flipping back and forth. I don't really know where the lines are drawn, but if they stay like with who they are with this round, it's 6v3, so they could split. But also, the minority does have Lydia's idol and Madison's idol, so honestly, I think it could be anyone.
I definitely think if it's possible that someone that's in the minority right now could go next week for sure. But I also think it's possible that people could take the people that are flipping back and forth as like a threat, because no one really likes a wild card in these types of games. And so I could see both sides coming together to be like, it's bad for both of us to have this person in the games. Let's get them out.
Yeah, I agree. If it stays with the normal alliances, you would think like Lydia would be in trouble, although she has the idol. She was a target a couple rounds ago. But also, like Nick said, if you have someone flipping, like Kevin and Joe have like flipped, that could be an easier vote with this many people left to just remove from the game, and then both sides just like go their own ways. So yeah, it's tough to say.
I'm trying to. Are the only idols that are still in the game right now? Is it just Lydia and Madison, or is there another one that I'm forgetting about?
There might be a merge one that hasn't been found yet, but yeah, that one, because there are clues out for it, but no one has found that one yet.
What do you think about those two idols still being in the game? We're now at 9. Usually you can only play them up until final 5, so it's coming down to the wire to play them. How big of an impact could those have going forward, I guess?
I think it's definitely huge. Like, that could definitely flip the numbers for them. I'm not sure if they're aware that the other person has the idol right now. Like, I don't think Madison has shared with anyone. Lydia's like, people are suspicious, but they haven't asked her, I think. But if they play it at the right time, it could definitely flip the numbers and get them back in majority.
Yeah. The longer that they wait to play them too, the bigger it's gonna be in the game for sure.
Yeah, for sure. 2 idols in 1 alliance with 9 people left, it can be huge. I mean, that's the entire game right there.
Yeah.
I do think we kind of have talked about it a bit, but I do want to get your thoughts on how far do you think, or how long can Kevin and Joe kind of keep playing the middle and keep flipping back and forth? Like, how long can they do that until eventually they have to pick someone to work with, or they're going to end up getting voted out?
This pisses me off because I did play a game with 2 people who did the exact same thing starting around this time in the game. And I was the one to be like, we need to get them out, and everyone kept them, and one of them made it to the final tribal council, and I'm like, y'all gotta get those flippers out of the game.
So you think they could potentially make a deep run right now?
It's possible. It depends on how everyone else decides to react to it.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen like in Survivor that people who have like flipped back and forth do go very far, but sometimes they could be like early merge. So like it all depends on how the other people in the game perceive that. If they feel like they're gonna stick with them in the long run, then they might keep them. But if they're already like raising red flags, then they could go home very soon. So it's really tough to tell when people are playing a game like that when they're going to go home.
I think it depends on like what they value. Like, if they think that flipping will piss a lot of people off, that could be like a good reason to bring them to the end, like because they wouldn't get any votes sitting next to you. But it's definitely risky because you have to flip on them before they flip on you. So I think it's all about the timing, and they have to like really feel it out.
I would also say that if you have someone who is like a big threat in the game and they know that they're like a target, they may want to keep people like that around as shields, because like so to keep their name off the chopping block, because they can always flip the vote back to them. So that's always another strategy that's a possibility.
Let's see. As of now, with 9 people left, we're finally into the single digits. Who is in the best position to win this game right now?
It's a loaded question right now because there's a lot of good gameplay happening for sure. And because of those 2 idols, literally anyone could come out on top.
Fair enough. Anything else? Anyone? Stephanie, John, Michael, do you guys have a concrete answer? Or is it the same thing as Meg?
It's tough. Madison has the idol and she has the final tribal advantage. So she's got the hardware, but she's also in the minority alliance. You have Zach, who's been kind of flying under the radar, but his name hasn't really been out there too much. So that could be a potential sleeper pick, although I could be completely wrong next week. So it is really tough to say at this point, especially with the numbers going back and forth the way they are.
I agree with both of you guys. I think that also Sabrina has been playing a very under the radar game. She was at risk like the first tribal. She survived that, and now she has a number. She's like found new connections. So I think she's been playing a pretty good game. And then I think everyone has, but I think some people are just more targets, like visibly. So they could be targeted soon because of that.
All right. I don't know. I'm trying to think of anything else. I feel like this was a pretty like cut and dry episode. I feel like I don't know. To our currently 4 viewers, anyone have any questions? Anything they want to talk about? Send it to the audience now. Any of you guys have anything? Any topics you want to hit that I haven't covered yet?
I just want to talk about how I was cackling rewatching Kevin lip sync with the purse on his shoulder the entire time. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, Kevin always
I
one of my
remember
favorites.
that.
I hope Kevin wins.
I want Kevin to know how iconic the name was that he picked too. I forgot every other name since we recorded that, but I remembered Rickalicious.
I think the names were my favorite part of that challenge, honestly. It was so funny. Because I'm trying to think if we had done that in my season. I don't know what I would have done because, well, yeah, I generally, because I would have no idea what I was doing. Would have had no context of like what, like, because I'd never seen it. I even today, I'm like, what would I have done? The only thing I can think of is I would have like run to like, if we were still at school, was before we got to home, my neighbors would be like, look, I need some clothes. I don't know what I'm doing, but I have 30 minutes. Help me. They'd be like, what is going on? But
honestly,
Kevin, you kind of make a fool out of yourself.
Kevin, I don't know who Cowboy Rick is either, and I just tried to Google it, and a picture of Rick and Morty with Cowboy popped up, so that didn't really answer my question either. Okay. Oh, because you had the cowboy hat? I'm into that.
Yeah. He based everything around the hat.
Honestly?
Right, Madison has a question here.
Okay.
She's lost Adam, Jason, Mike, and now Owen. Who do you think I'll align myself with the most with my besties gone?
I think you're going to align yourself most with the 2 advantages in your pockets.
Yeah, I did write that down too as I was watching. I'm like, well, Madison's just lost all her biggest allies in a row.
Yeah.
That's always a tough situation to be in. As for who, I'm not really sure. It'd be cool if her and Lydia had an alliance because they both have idols. But who knows?
All right. Here's a question that I have recently thought of. Since Madison put that question in the chat, she has lost 4 of those people. I don't think it's in a row, but it's very like close together. And she's had this idol now for like a little bit. Like, at what point does she play that for someone else, or does she not play it at all? Should she have played it for someone else to keep maybe some numbers on her side at this point in the game?
I think it's like the same thing when we were talking about if Lydia should. I would only play it for someone else if it puts myself in a better position for the rest of the game. So like if she could flip the numbers. But I think that she at this point should just save it and play on herself, because I don't know if she'll be able to figure out who's actually loyal to her and if it'll like bite her back.
I don't know if like her name's even really being thrown out that much anyway. So I definitely think it was a smart choice to just let your ally go, because at the end of the day, it's an individual game. Only one person wins, and so why make yourself a bigger target when you're not really one to begin with?
Yeah, and you're playing, like Nick said, you're playing for yourself with this few people left. Like you really gotta make sure that you're in the best position moving forward, and putting a target on yourself in the minority is not the best way to do that.
Sometimes I wish season 2 had this mindset and not everyone was playing idols on everyone else, ruining everybody's plans. But it is what it is. I've moved on since that, as you can clearly tell.
Did you get idled out? I forget.
I kind of forget too. So I think so. I think we tried to split on Austin and Mike again, and then we ended up putting more on Austin. I think Mike played an idol on Austin, and then they had more votes. So that's how I went home.
Okay. Well,
very tragic, but probably I did that to myself. I don't know. Anything else? If not, we can wrap it up. We've going for almost an hour now. Madison, I'm sure you're still here. If you have anything else, let us know. Kevin might still be here. I don't know. It's a free for all at this point. What do you guys want to talk about?
I want to plug Ball Viber.
Plug it.
Yeah, Ball Viber. Go follow at Ball Viber on Instagram. We just recently, and by recently I mean like 2 or 3 weeks ago, made an Instagram account. So yeah.
I'm putting something for my ego.
Andrew is our season 2.
I didn't say it. I'm not the one saying this, guys. It's Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. All right. We'll also plug Northeastern Survivor while they're here. John, Michael, Stephanie, thank you guys for coming on. Nick, as always, pleasure to have you. You killed it in the challenge. Thank you, everyone who commented, who was part of this. We will see you guys next week for episode 12. It's going to be it's a juicy one. I'll tell you that now. It's a juicy one. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.